welcome to tonight's regular Board of Education meeting here at the high school auditorium on Wednesday, February 16th, 2022. Calling tonight's meeting to order, I would like a roll call, please, Tammy.
Nubbs Ashbeck.
Here.
Jack Krieger.
Here.
Ron Liberty.
Here.
Kendra Osmond. Jacqueline Bremley. Maria Volpe. Here. Brett Waller.
Here.
Lindsay Dingling.
Here.
Kevin Blake.
Here. If you would please join me as you're able to stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Merrill Area Public Schools Board of Education meeting. Match respects the role our elected board members serve in the function of our board meetings. Board members and administrators are committed to working collaboratively to provide our students the highest levels of achievement. This meeting is a formal event and the professional conduct is the expectation for all in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sample. First on our agenda, we have public comments to the board. Tammy, I did not receive any sheets requesting time for public comment. So we will move right to board recognition. Tonight, the Board of Education would like to recognize Allison Hunter, Adeline Callos, Gwendolyn Edernecka, and Bridget Steinago. A quick recap from their coaches. These are the Merrill girls wrestling team members who capped off a great season with two of them taking the podium at the state tournament in lacrosse. This was the first ever WIAA girls state tournament, and to have two members of our Merrill wrestling team place was awesome. All our girls practiced hard and improved throughout the season. The work put into the season was worth it. For Gwendolyn, the state finals was incredible. She has worked very hard all season and placed second in this competition. Adeline had some goals set for herself. She was able to achieve them and placed fourth in the competition. She has 2 more years to continue to improve and achieve even more goals. Allison is our most veteran wrestler and did a great job battling to go 3-2 at the state tournament. She will continue to work hard to achieve her goals as well, as she is only a sophomore. Bridget improved a lot this year, and it was good to see her grow in the sport. As a team, an unofficial score was kept, and Merrill would have been 5th in the entire state. That is an incredible achievement. Allison, Adeline, Gwendolyn, and Bridget did a great job representing our Merrill wrestling team at state, and we'd like to recognize them this evening. Joining them on stage tonight is Coach Suhaki, Arneson, and Mullenberg.
I was getting scared to bring us up here. All the way here. Thank you for reflection. I was lucky enough to be able to coach the girls this year. Actually, I kind of volunteered. Coach Sucky fought me on it, but I said I probably could get a chance to do that. But it was kind of fun because the girls obviously knew that they would get to go to the state tournament no matter what. But obviously through the year we kind of talked to them about, we're not just going to go there. We're going to go there and do Merrill wrestling. What that means is, it's going to be successful. And hopefully, school as time goes on, there's I don't know, a 3-year window or whatever. But the plan is to have actually a full squad, hopefully maybe even next year. And then hopefully it develops into a full-time sport, and we got coaches and more girls representing Merrill on the wrestling mats. It's probably one of the fastest growing sports in the U.S. as far as numbers and throughout the world. Girls wrestling is a pretty big thing in a lot of states already. But we're going to try to make it a big thing here in Merrill, and hopefully Coach Sulascano supports it, but I was the one kind of battling the girls all the time. But we're going to keep bringing it, and we're going to keep trying to improve numbers, because I think one of the things we got to do is provide opportunity for kids to be successful. I think wrestling is a good avenue for kids to be successful. They learn a lot throughout the season. So appreciate the school obviously supporting us. We got a great club. We got a great group of coaches. We got great support from you guys. So we're going to keep trying to expand the program, and hopefully we'll keep coming back here year in and year out hearing from you. So appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
worthwhile recognition just to start up group, and we're excited to see where this will lead for Matt and for all our Lady Jays wrestling team members in the future. Next, I'd like to call up our Student Board of Education representatives for their reports. Amelia Scovera and Isaiah Rell.
Winter sports are winding down, and spring sports will be starting up again soon. Sports such as baseball, track, and softball will be starting up practices in the coming week. And it has also been nice that it's felt a little warmer and more like spring lately as well. Let's just hope I didn't jinx anything. It is also scholarship season, and seniors have been working hard to write their essays so that they can have the opportunity to apply for and hopefully win scholarships. This week in Flex, there will be an opportunity for people at the high school to meet who are interested in learning more about Taekwondo. It will be a great chance for high schoolers to try something new.
The spring musical is coming along very nicely. Grease will debut on April 6th through the 9th in the high school auditorium, and ticket sales for that will open up soon. So the students have been working very hard, and you can already see the scenes are starting to come together. Solo and ensemble is approaching soon on March 5th. This is an opportunity for Merrill band and choir students to show off their talent and compete with other schools. This year, Merrill High School is hosting all of the schools who will come to perform. Students will choose a solo ranked Class A, B, or C, Class A being the hardest level and the only one you can advance to state on, and perform it in front of judges who will score them. If they do well in their solo, duet, or trio, they have the choice to go to state. Everyone participating is practicing hard and hopes to do their best. Winterfest discussions are still happening, but there is no concrete plan yet. The Student Council has taken on part of the planning and has gotten a good list of possible activities out for the fun day. The ACT is fast approaching for the juniors, and the test is planned for March 8th. Clara Lukes also went out into the community this Monday the 14th to sing Valentines to those who ordered them. In the morning, the choir went around the school singing songs to classes and teachers to spread the love. That afternoon, they went out to businesses and people's homes to sing and deliver cards and candy. It was a great way for the choir to get their name out in the community and show off their talent. You can see snippets of their day singing on the choir Facebook page.
So thank you for the updates. Any board members have any questions for Amelia or Isaiah? Anything we would like to highlight? Not, you guys did an excellent job. I don't see any hands up, so thank you very much for a little insight as to what's going on in the schools. Look forward to hearing from you again next month. Next on our agenda is our administrative reports. Shortly, I'll turn it over to Dr. Sample. A reminder that board members do have the opportunity to ask questions beforehand if they do have the questions on the administrative reports, contacting Dr. Sample or that administrator directly. But you certainly can ask clarifying questions or bring things up for the good of the order here shortly. This time I'll turn it over to Dr. Sample for the administrative reports.
Thank you, Kevin. Below you will find the administrative reports as provided to you last week. Are there any questions or comments regarding any of these reports? You'll also find my superintendent's report. I start with a similar format of the monthly activities and meetings with the events or meetings in bold print that I will elaborate a little bit more on. The Maple Grove update is not exactly accurate as that changed this morning. I was hoping to be able to report the offer to purchase is still the same, but that offer to purchase was amended. Kevin and I both received an email, and they are asking, or they have amended for one more week, correct, Kevin?
Approximately a week and a half for closing date.
A week and a half. The fault was certainly not with us. We signed and returned the offer to purchase as requested about a week and a half ago, so I was hoping to have good news. That good news looks like it may be delayed at this point, will be delayed at this point. I did sign the amendment and return that today, as today is the deadline. The referendum survey timeline is below. This will be a standing item through March. I will put anything that is new in bold print. And so in bold print, what I have now as this timeline closes with this board meeting, please see the new timeline from Doreen Dembski below. She is the one we are partnering with. We've had 3 meetings, actually 4 meetings, because we had one today with Doreen since the January board meeting. We've created several documents. I apologize for the multiple emails this afternoon, but as promised, you will receive any information prior to anything being made public, whether it be on our website or in our Facebook or any mailings. That's going to be real important because I want you to be informed because you may be entertaining questions from the community. Any questions specifically regarding referendum, since there are some new items that I sent to you today via email?
Maria, go ahead.
Actually, like, I looked at the referendum items like the FAQs and such. I just noticed some grammatical things in there. Is this already a approved document that we received this afternoon?
It is a draft. All of those are draft documents, and they will be approved tomorrow before publication. So we're going to get 4 more sets of eyes on them before they go published.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Which do you recall? Which document specifically?
I think it was in the FAQs.
Okay.
I can send that to you so we don't waste time here.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I can do that. But yeah, there were at least 3 or 4 spots where I know a grammatical error occurred.
Okay. My administrative evaluations were progressing nicely until recently. Things have been really, really busy, but I'm on track for this time of the year. You can see the observations and rapid cycle feedback that I've been able to perform thus far. I'll talk a little bit more about the state education convention when we get to the last agenda item and the board business, because Kevin was also in attendance. You can see the building principal agenda items as well as the alt meeting agenda items and our central office administrator meeting agenda items, as well as the 3 weekly bulletins. We provide those each and every Friday for our staff. Any questions at all with my superintendent's report?
So I noticed that you're discussing the ESSER 3 planning and reflection. Do you have any details on that yet?
On the what? I'm sorry.
The ESSER 3, the ESSER 3 you noted on.
We just received the survey back from the parents, and we will share those results. Those just came in, I believe, yesterday, and we will share those. There were no surprises really on where they felt the money should be spent. And so, yeah, we will provide updates in our next upcoming committee meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sample. Any additional questions on administrative reports, or we'll be moving on to our next agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move down to the committee reports. We'll start with the Finance Human Resources Committee. The draft minutes from the February 2nd, 2022 committee meeting were provided and attached to the notes for board members, and Brett Waller as chair and additional members of the Finance Human Resources Committee are available for questions. Do we have any board member questions for the Finance Human Resources Committee this evening?
I just have one. Can you tell me why it took so long for that to get put on the agenda?
We were trying to clean up the motions, and we wanted the minutes to reflect accurately the seconds in the motions of that meeting.
And also, when I asked a question about maybe sharing a link for the instructions on how to find the audit on the Merrill Area Public School website, I don't notice that on the minutes either.
I'll look into that and I will make that correction, absolutely.
Okay. Just because, you know, I don't know if Nubbs would be able to find it or whomever, but instructions on how to get there would be nice. That's all. Thank you.
All right, and that was shared with the board that evening, just not the instructions of how to get there on the website, correct? Yeah, okay.
The link to the audit information to January Finance HR Committee meeting, topic
I
summary,
didn't see that.
or agenda. I believe it was like the second or third item that we talked about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Any additional questions or comments for the Finance Human Resources Committee? Hearing none, we'll move to the CTP, or Curriculum Technology Pupil Services Committee. The draft minutes were included from the February 9th committee meeting. Maria Volpe as chair, and additional board members who are on that committee are available for questions. Do we have any board member questions for our CTP committee members this evening? Any questions or comments for the CTP committee? Hearing none, we will move on the agenda. Under unfinished business, we do not have anything currently listed in that part of the agenda, so we will move on to Board of Education business. First item on there is the CISA 9 Shared Services Agreement for 2022 to 2023 with the topic summary sheet provided by Dr. Sample, as well as additional value-add service sheet from CISA 9, and a recommended motion from our Finance Human Resources Committee. Do we have a motion this evening? Maria?
I move to approve the CISA 9 2022-2023 shared service contract as presented with a projected cost of $307,287.
Motion by Maria. Do we have a second? We have a second by Brett. Any questions or discussion on this topic or this motion this evening? Any questions or discussion on this topic or motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. 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 Anyone opposed, say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously on a voice vote. Next item on our agenda is a review of hiring policies for fiscal year 22, which are policies 3120 and 4120, employment of staff, the attached topic summary sheet from Edward Den, and a recommended motion from our Finance Human Resources Committee. Do we have a motion this evening? Maria?
Move to approve the revisions and second reading of policies 3120, 4120, employment of staff, and to recommend administration make corresponding changes as presented to the administrative guidelines.
Motion by Maria. Do we have a second? Second by Brett. Do we have any discussion or question on this motion or topic this evening? Any discussion or questions on this motion or topic? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously on a voice vote. Next item this evening on our agenda is the approval of the PRMS English Language Arts Resource. The topic summary sheet was included from our curriculum director, Glenda Ajinski, and a recommended motion from our CTP committee. Do we have a motion this evening? Brett?
Recommend a motion to approve the purchase of Springboard Language Arts Resources for grades 6 through 8 in the amount of $10,058.13 to be paid from the 2022-2023 budget.
A motion by Brett. Do we have a second? We have a second by Ron. Any discussion or questions on that motion or topic this evening? Jacqueline, go ahead.
I would ask just a few questions about it. I reviewed the topic summary sheet regarding the springboards and what the teachers and students had to say about the program. I'm just curious to know if there was any parental input about the programming.
Glenda, could you come up to the table and the microphone, please?
Through our vetting process, we only seek, gather input from students and staff after each pilot program that's used. The middle school vetted 2 different resources through the process, and part of the whole vetting process for Merrill is just to get feedback from students and staff. But that's a good question.
Is it all work that's completed during school hours or in the classroom, or is this also a program that's utilized at home?
Well, if there is homework, it would come from this resource.
If it's homework, okay.
So typically, something that might help you with that, typically when we get a new resource for the elementary, when we just adopted this current school year, after the year starts, through our title programming, we have a family night where they explain the use of the resource. At the elementary level, they talked a lot about phonics instruction because that was something that was going to be new. And I would imagine that we will do the same at the middle school to have an open house so that parents do have the opportunity to ask those questions.
Okay. I'm also curious in looking at the data that was collected regarding the app or the program that you're looking to purchase. And one of the areas stated, the resource helped me build knowledge in my content area, and then it broke it down by percentages. I'm curious to know if the knowledge increased based upon just from utilizing this method, or is it in comparison, like is it an improvement based upon this method, or is that in comparison to what you're currently using?
In comparison to what's currently being used. Currently, the resource that they have, not all grades are using that resource, and there was new research that came out last year or the year prior to that, talking about how if you have a population that of students who come from trauma or poverty, the resource we currently were using was not the most advantageous for those students. It was kind of a middle of the road resource that if you came to school with lots of varied background experiences, you would be successful, and that's just not common in most communities this day and age.
Okay. So is a 50% gain based upon this program from what the other program that was you're using?
Right. Okay. Yes. Lucy Hawkins, yes.
And then I'm also just curious because one of the downfalls to this that I read was too much iPad dependency takes away small group instruction, independent learning, and then the importance of that silent reading. I'm just curious to know if there's been any, look into other research about increasing the use of iPads and taking these things away. So this is like an immediate study showing that this platform is increasing skills. However, what does that look like over the long term? Not also outside of just this program, but school as a whole.
So the resource that I submitted for approval has the least amount of technology. So I'm not sure if you are maybe referencing one of the prior pilots, because this one basically has minimal to no technology other than the resource itself is reproducible through a website where teachers can print the books, which that's what we did through the pilot, but that also incurs a lot of cost on our district as well as manpower to make sure that we're making, that someone's making those copies for the students.
Yeah.
And what was your other part of your question?
I think that you might have addressed it.
Okay. Yeah, but this does offer small group instruction. It also provides time for students to read novels or trade books, some people refer to them as, where they can do small group instruction. And something else that's important to note about this also is that this resource is published through the same company that produces the ACT. And the hope is that next year we're going to start the vetting process at the high school level, and this would most likely be a resource that they would also pilot as well, so that we're ensuring continuity.
So if it's expanded to include older grades, is it once the software is purchased, it can be utilized in any capacity with a number, or is that increase then?
No, it's not software, it's an actual
Or-
book.
Oh, it's a
Yes,
book, okay.
it's an actual teacher's manual, and then there is a student's manual as well, student workbook.
Okay, I misunderstood that, thank you.
If you're looking at the rolling agenda, all of the information from both pilots are contained within that agenda. There's a lot of information, so it's very easy to get it confused.
Thank you. That's all I had.
All right, thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Glenda. Any additional questions while we have Glenda at the microphone to answer on this motion or discuss on this topic? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously on a voice vote. Next item on our agenda this evening is the request to change April's regular board meeting date from April 20th, 2022, possibly to a meeting date of April 19th. I would ask Dr. Sample to explain a little bit more on that, please.
My annual Spring State Superintendent's Conference is scheduled to begin on April 20th. The conference begins at approximately noon with a large district caucus meeting of which I'm a member, and then there are breakout sessions after that. If it's at all possible, my recommended motion would be to move the meeting to April 19th, which would be a Tuesday, the night before, if that's available to all board members.
With that question and update, do we have a motion or a question?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Yeah, I won't be able to make it, that's my wedding anniversary, so if I want to stay married, I will.
Well, you'll be tipping your hand, Mr. Ashback.
But it's okay.
How you vote, so.
You can still have it, but I won't be there.
All right. Maria?
I move to change the April 20th, 2022 regular board meeting date to April 19th, 2022, even if Nubbs is not able to make it because he's doing something more important.
We have a motion by Maria. Do we have a second? A second by Brett. Any additional questions or discussion? Any additional questions or discussion or well wishes for Nubbs? Hearing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda this evening is an Incredible Bank donation. We had the donation form and information provided by Amy Stitzring regarding the donation of funds from Incredible Bank for the Washington elementary students to attend the production of Cats at the Grand Theater in Wausau. There is a recommended motion, and it is coming to the board based on policy 7230 when any donation is over $2,500 limit, it is brought separately for board approval. Do we have a motion this evening? Ron?
Make a motion to approve the donation of funds from Incredible Bank valued at $3,400 for Washington elementary students to attend the production of Cats at the Grand Theater in Wausau.
We have a motion by Ron. Do we have a second? Second by Nubbs. Any questions or discussion on this motion or topic this evening? Go ahead, Chad.
I see that it was filled out on the 7th. The only reason I question it, does it got a, seen it already happened? That play already went through? That we're taking a donation that something paid for it after the fact, or something that's all right to do, or?
Dr. Sample, I know a lot of times we have things that fall under the policy amount that does come here after the fact. I can't speak to why the form was filled out accordingly or the timing of that. On occasion, we do see that happen. Dr. Sample, any insight as to the situation?
There was the timeliness of, the donation was made after the last board meeting and the play was recently. So I think it was more of the timing. If we would, if we needed to wait for board approval or call for a separate board meeting to accept that donation, the students wouldn't have been able to go. We were waiting on board
I'm just
approval.
asking.
Yeah.
I just don't want to say why you guys are paying this at all. It's already used.
Exactly, and we'll always try to be timely with our donations. As soon as we receive them, we'll bring them to the very next board meeting. This one was unusual in the fact that the event already occurred.
Additional questions or discussion on the motion or this topic? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries with the noted abstention. Welcome, Kendra. Next item on our agenda is the State Education Convention review. At this point, while this is informational only, we can ask questions. The attendees for the State Education Convention this year were Dr. Sample, Dale Bergman, and myself. We'll start with an overview from Dr. Sample, and I will add accordingly. Dr. Sample, if you'd like to update the board on our State Education Convention.
Absolutely. It was fairly well attended for this being the first time in person for a couple of years, with 50% of the normal attendees present. Just going to my report, the keynote speakers were outstanding this year. The nice thing about so few people attending, or 50% less people, is we were able to make most of our sessions. Sometimes we get you're not able to attend some of the breakout sessions that you want to because they fill up rather quickly. I think the highlights for me was Ravi. We had Ravi as a guest speaker here. He talks about more of a global viewpoint of education and acceptance and preparing the next generation to be successful. Ravi was a keynote here at Merrill High School, right here on this very stage, and so he certainly did remember us, and we were able to spend some time with him. And in fact, during his keynote, he mentioned what a wonderful school district Merrill Area Public Schools was, and mentioned Kevin and Dale by name. I think he forgot my name. Well, maybe he mentioned my name as well. So that was pretty special to have a global keynote speaker like Ravi in our company and being able to reflect back on his time here. Brandon Fleming was also the other keynote speaker, overcoming obstacles and unlocking possibilities. And then one interesting, Karen Buxman is an author, and she is actually a neurohumorist, talking about the neuroscientific portion of the brain and how it relates to humor. And so she is seriously a doctor of humor. And then also the event was followed with Craig Counsell, Milwaukee's brewer manager. I attended some of the breakouts having to do with referendum information. In fact, that's where I first met Doreen Dembski. I was referred to her by Bill Foster, and I was able to meet her in person and have some time with her at the convention. I also attended school budgets, community partnerships, quality curriculum, addressing truancy, continuous improvement, some COVID-19 informational sessions, culture and enriching environments, and school building construction, although that was attended only because I was in the wrong session. I didn't realize that until about 10 minutes into it. We're not looking to build anytime soon here, so. Kevin?
All right, thank you, Dr. Sample. Much like Dr. Sample mentioned, some of the topics or tracks that I attended were the community engagement pieces, not only during referendum time, but during normal times of how we communicate with our communities. I also went into different sessions for school finance, student achievement, leadership, superintendent evaluation, COVID-19 or health, and things also related to human resources and facilities. Along the way, one of the things that Dr. Sample, he did mention all the keynote speakers. Through that, all of our associations, WASB, the State Association for School Boards, District Administrators, and school board officials, each one of the heads of those respective organizations speak, as well as State Superintendent Jill Underley. And we had a virtual update from Governor Evers. With that, we also have some time in there to go into the exhibit hall, very similar to our field house, where you can meet with vendors if we're looking for something new or some comparisons. Some of the highlights there, and some of them are some of the tried and true vendors we have, like Taher or Skyward. I always like to stop and see what our friends at School Perceptions or the WIA have to say, as well as others such as Point of Beginnings, Myron Construction, Ray Architect, and if I can get a couple moments of Corbin Clark's time on their time, I guess we'll take that as well. So I stopped there to say hi. With that, a lot of the presenters, other than keynote speakers, were from, I tried to select various districts that were similar in size to that of MAPS, and try to understand what they're going through with the utilization of monies from ESSER. And then I went to a couple other ones that had smaller and larger districts as well, where instead of looking at a few $1 million for ESSER, they're looking at $30 and $40 million of ESSER funding. So trying to make sure we're making sense of what that is and what other districts are doing for either one-time or long-term expenses and plannings. A lot of times they do also look forward to some of the breakfast and lunch sessions where the awards are given out. That was tied into the general sessions this year because all of the meals with large groups based on the pandemic were determined not to be necessary, so we did not have that. That was blended in. But as Dr. Sample said, it was always nice to see Ravi, and certainly I enjoyed hearing what Craig Council had to say. And Brandon Fleming, his Harvard Diversity Project, everyone should look up and really say some great things there of what he did with some of the students from the suburbs of Atlanta and took them to Harvard for a debate project and how they ranked over time. With that, I guess the only other thing there, and much like the large caucus that Dr. Sample references both at his superintendent meeting as well as state convention, I was a representative at the delegate assembly, and that went as anticipated and as we discussed at the meeting prior to my attendance. Any questions on state convention, things we reviewed, what it is about for any board members? Maria?
Thanks for going over all of that, all the information as to what transpired. Appreciate it.
No problem. I do try to turn in some notes and things to Tammy just for the file to say what sessions I attended, who the presenters were, just to kind of keep track of that for my own knowledge and for the district's sake, but thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Jacqueline, go ahead.
Only because I'm a newer board member, I'm curious to know if any of the materials you obtained would be something that I could review or be worth learning from.
They have on the WASB website, they have a lot of those materials, and in fact, I paid just a little bit extra so that I could have the recordings of the keynote speakers too, and I'm still waiting on those. Once they get those recordings done, those will also be available, and I'm sure that we can share those.
Okay.
So
I'd
we
be interested.
can share the links to any of those sessions, and I'll do that in an email with the board update.
I appreciate that, thank you.
And I'll double back and look to see if there was any worksheets or handouts that I thought should be shared as well. I didn't have any that I brought this evening that stuck out specifically to me, but I'll look back through my notes and I will do the same. Any additional questions or discussion on the State Education Convention? All right. At this time, we're moving to the consent agenda, and I will ask if anyone wants anything pulled from our consent agenda before asking for a motion.
I'd like to pull a personal report.
Did you have an individual item, or do you want to pull the whole personnel report
The
for
whole
discussion?
personnel report, please.
All right, there's been a request by Maria to pull the personnel report. So before I ask for a motion, I'll ask Eddie to come up to the microphone and be prepared for Maria's questions and any other board members that have questions on said personnel report. Go ahead, Maria.
So with the latest information that we just received, I see that the associate principal position has been filled at the middle school by the associate principal at Kate currently, is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Yep.
Okay. I guess I just wondered how that happened because I think as of the last meeting last week, that position wasn't even posted. So I guess I'm just wondering
Yep, so
what were the works? I don't understand.
basically we talked about transferring and not doing an actual interview process. And so that's basically what led us here. I believe he's in the transfer section of the personnel report, correct?
Yeah, his name shows up about 3 times because he's leaving one position and is at the middle school, and then it's also a transfer. And that's part of us with the culture and the climate and putting people where they want to be and where they're most effective. We recognize our own internal candidates that are very good. One thing that we could have done is we could have interviewed, opened this position, posted it, wait for our candidates to apply, schedule the interviews, call them in, do the interviews, do the background checks and all of that. And then if it happened to be Mr. Schultz, who we know is good, he is an internal candidate and he's a great fit for the middle school, then what we would do is turn around and post for Kate, and now we're looking at getting into late March, early April, and then missing the hiring season. We know what we have with Mr. Schultz. He was a middle school teacher. He was a middle school instructional coach. He is now an AP at K2, and he expressed great interest in middle school and working with middle school age students and those teachers. And so that was the reason for the transfer.
Sure, and obviously I trust you that you have the best candidate. I'm just looking at historically, have we always done it this way? Or how do we pick and choose when we're going to transfer or when we're going to interview? I guess that's where I'm confused. So I guess we talked about this position at CTP, or excuse me, at HR Finance. And I was confused at the time as to how it was listed on the personnel report. And so I guess I'm just looking to you guys to understand how it works each time, and is it consistent and transparent, or is there times where we will interview as opposed to just move somebody into the position?
Typically what we do, and I'll use teachers as an example because this one's limited. There's 3 potential people that could transfer to the middle school position, and we heard interest from 1. And so that's the way it works. So if you've got teachers though, and if teachers want to transfer, that's the first level that we'll entertain. If teachers want to transfer from one building to the next, or a preferred grade level, and that gets approved, that's the first opportunity that we have. And then any positions that are left, we would interview for. So we try to go internal first if if there's interest there. Like I say, it's a culture climate piece, and it's all about right fit.
Okay, and I guess I'm just wanting to soothe my own mind that this is something that we are consistent with in the way that we handle transfers. Okay.
Correct. Now with Kate Goodrich, with the approval of this personnel report, now Kate Goodrich has the posting, and we follow the same process for interviewing candidates, and out of the interview process, then choosing the best candidate.
So the Kate assistant principal is now posted as opposed to if somebody would express interest and just transfer into it.
Correct. Will be posted with board approval of the personnel report tonight. It would be posted tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And then I have one other question. I just want to clarify on the record because we talked about this at both CTP and HR Finance. This instructional coach position, I just want to make certain that I understand because clearly I don't. After both committee meetings, the instructional coach position that was vacated and is available at PRMS, is it posted? Is it going to be filled? My understanding is that it was going to be filled, but I feel like I might be getting a different message.
No, it says to be filled for the 2022-2023 school year. Instructional coach, PRMS, that's right above the line, the orange colored line that says all positions below are being hired. It's right above that. Instructional coach, it was formerly, the prior employee was Matt Scholl, and in the gray it says to be filled for next school year.
So it will be filled for next school year?
That's correct.
I mean, it will be posted and hopefully filled, I guess is.
That's correct. It will be posted, interviewed, and hopefully filled.
But that is the plan, to have an instructional coach replaced at the middle school?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
That is the plan, to have the instructional coach at the middle school, because we've heard many times that that's a need.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Those were the questions I had.
Thank you, Maria. Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a typo or not, but on the personnel report, it says all positions below are being hired with ESSER 2 or 3 funding. But we don't know what ESSER 3 funding is going to be used for at this time. Is that meaning ESSER 1 and 2? Or is this when you told me that you guys were just planning and reflecting what we're putting in on the personnel report already?
We have positions that were purchased with ESSER 2 that would continue with ESSER 3. So yes, we did seek parent input. That is a part of the ESSER 3 dollars. Every district in the state had to do that, whether that money was spent or not. We still had to seek parental input. And so the parental input from the survey did support what we've done so far. It was very, very high with social emotional learning, social emotional needs, those types of things that we're addressing with our ESSER 2 and 3 money. So yeah, I'll gladly share that survey with you as well.
Well, yeah, I was just curious because, I thought maybe that would be considered ESSER 1 and 2 because we're just getting the reports and stuff back from the surveys. So I didn't know that funding or ESSER 3 would already be included in the personnel report.
The timing is a little different, especially when you're talking about an early purchase when it comes to personnel, because the plan is to continue with the personnel until the ESSER dollars run out. So yeah, we're not the only district in the state that already started that spending process, and then they said, oh, need some parental input as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Chad?
So, just a quick question about this transfer with the principal. Was that posted internal, or did you guys seek out somebody?
No, it was known internally, and in
Was
order.
it sent out that we're looking internally for somebody, or just because he's retiring, it was known to him that he retired?
Correct. With the retirement of Mark Seaman, that created the opening that people were aware of the vacancy. Right.
So we don't send something out that we're looking for assistant principal.
Internally?
Or associate principal, yeah, internally.
No, the position wasn't cut, so it was understood that we would replace Mark Seaman as he retired, but no. And the only person that can transfer to, I need to clarify that too, a teacher cannot, if a teacher wanted that role, it's not a transfer. It's AP to AP, teacher to teacher. Those are the transfers. And so if it was a teacher seeking an administrative role, that would be an interview process. Because it's not a transfer from light position to light position.
I just want to make sure, I guess, so like a teacher to teacher, that's just, okay, they see somebody retiring, so a teacher from, I don't know, a social studies teacher from the high school can go to middle school, they would just ask for that transfer.
They would ask for the transfer and be approved for the transfer. So if it was a social studies teacher and they're certified for the middle school and everything matches up, absolutely. We start internally first, and then anything that is left after that gets posted and interviewed, typically from the outside of the district.
I want to make sure that, I guess that staff and administration know that that's what you guys do first, I guess. I didn't know that.
I think you gotta realize too, like, so not, and back to Maria's original question about consistency. So part of it is strategic, right? So like if you have someone in a role, it doesn't have to be administrative, it could be a coaching position, like athletics, for example. If you got a JV coach that has been with the program for a decade, head coach is retiring, and you say, wow, that person's been here the whole time, they've been a huge part of the team's success, we want to, potentially transfer that into that role. Granted, that'd be a little different because they're JV or assistant to varsity, but the same kind of concept of saying, okay, we have an individual in a role that is identical to this other one, we know that they're being successful, teacher, administrator, as long as it's one to the same thing, we can identify them and move them. It's not even potentially a situation where we have to ask for a request. That's how the letters of assignment, teacher contracts, administrator contracts, all of them are set up like that, so we can be strategic. Now, at the same time, it can be initiated by the individual as well. It just depends on the circumstances. And back to Maria's question about consistency, it's not a default to say, well, if someone wants to transfer, we're just going to allow it. Not everyone is the right fit for the next open position per se. So if there's, administrative thought or other potential review history, things in a person's file, past performance, whatever, that would suggest that maybe they should not be allowed to transfer there, we might not entertain that. But we would use information like that to make a rational decision. However, if you're an individual on the outside, it might not always look like, oh yeah, we do the same process every single time, because they're all different circumstances. We don't get associate principal positions every day, much less a situation where one would want to transfer from those grade levels. It just depends on the circumstances, so.
Well, I guess that's my point, is I just want to make sure that staff, say another associate principal is waiting for it to come out being posted, and they missed it because they didn't contact you guys. To me, it should be kind of very open that, hey, we're going to look internal first. I don't know if that means send an email and say, hey, we're looking internal for replace this. I just don't want somebody waiting for it to be posted. Well, why wasn't it posted? Because you guys were just going to take a transfer. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I'm saying we made a strategic decision intentionally and did not give that opportunity up because we had a person who we felt was.
So then you,
if we slide it
in back, so then you went and handpicked the certain person.
That's what a transfer is essentially. Transfer would be handpicked, whether they're a coach, a teacher, you name it. Now, if we don't do any transferring, that's a different discussion. But I mean, essentially, a transfer is a handpicked or a strategic decision around hopefully a good outcome for them.
But Chad, what you're saying is, did we slide Megan or Brad, the only other two APs in this process?
Yeah, okay, I see Shannon, let's get Shannon. Say Shannon says, hey, I'm retired. You have two associate principals. One's waiting for the posting because, hey, we're going to wait for a posting for that. The other one says, hey, we wait to contact you, can I transfer?
He can't transfer because that'd be going from an AP to a principal. It has to be blank. So the only two people we would be sliding would be Brad Potter and Megan, because they're both APs. So it's AP to AP, principal to principal, those types of things.
I get it. But I'm just saying, if you have two people, I just don't want two people sitting there, and one's waiting for the posting, one's not.
Correct.
You take the one, and he's sitting there, well, why did I get a chance?
Kevin, I'll just say, Dr. Sample did call me to ask if they'd be interested, and I did ask them. So they were in consideration as well.
Okay. That's one.
Gotcha.
And that's great, that's what I'm getting to, that's the ones that they know.
Yeah.
That's
We don't want
what
to,
it's
we don't want to
kinda
slide anybody.
about. Right.
I will say that that's not like commonly known, right, across the staff, just so we're on the same page, it's not like advertised, so we're, yeah.
Also, Chad, I want to have a follow-up from Linda. You good?
I'm good.
Thank you. Linda, follow-up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, but what if we would have posted it for the rest of our teacher, like the teachers? What if one of our teachers was interested in that position? Because we've had teachers jump from being a teacher to administrator, you know, we didn't give them that opportunity either by doing that bypass either. You know, and sometimes you can have a really great teacher come up from the ranks and turn into be a great associate teacher.
Correct.
You know, and, you know, I don't even know if we even followed that like with Head Start stuff. You know, I thought we were told at that point that if somebody wanted that position, because when we were redistricting, they had to reapply for that job.
Correct.
You know, so, but, and we couldn't do the transferring from, you know, the Washington principal to Head Start because they had to still apply because it was an open position. So I guess, what is, I mean, we have a retirement versus, you know, redistricting, buildings. So, I mean, we gotta maybe look at that a little bit better.
We looked at it very, very well, and if we're talking about teachers, the likelihood of a teacher with no principal experience going against somebody who's already a great fit, as deemed professionally by me, with at least a year of AP, and that would be fine. Let's say if the grass is greener and we've opened it up for interviews, and that's not the person that's not the best candidate for the middle school, that's fine. But then what we're gonna do is turn around and again, we're looking at filling that position then later, and it's a domino effect as we go down. And then if Matt's heart is with middle school, I don't know how many more years would pass before we would have a middle school opening, and then somebody else in Tomahawk or East Everest or Wausau has a middle school opening, and then we lose Matt. So it really does play into culture. That's kind of the chance we take, that we're probably eliminating somebody by not having the interview process that could be better. But we see the strength in Matt, what he's done, the relationship he's got, that came very, very highly regarded by both Ryan Martinovich and Heather. It wasn't something that we told Heather we were going to do. People were involved in this decision. And so I think it's a very good decision, and I stand by it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
If we have to have more discussion, I just don't want to have, like, we're definitely dancing on the line of what should be in closed session, and I just don't want to violate that for the people who we're talking about. So if you guys want to talk about whether or not transfers should be allowed, that's fine, I think, for open, but for names, if you want to table it, take it to close, that's fine. I think we're past my comfort zone on names and people in open session.
Allude to that. Yeah, that's what I was going to allude to, the same thing you just said in my comment. So, if we can discuss further specifics, I feel like it should be in a closed session environment.
Which would not be this evening, it's not
Yeah.
posted as such. So my
So
question
my
as
question
a follow-up would be to the board, does somebody have a motion for that particular position, or are we going to move on and ask for a motion for the consent agenda as written? Maria?
I have something different.
Okay.
Just because we've had so many questions lately with regard to the personnel report, I don't know if I need to make a motion or just a suggestion that we take the personnel report off the consent agenda and have it as a standalone item on the regular agenda. Obviously, if there's something that needs to go in closed session, we could do that as well. But I think with the ESSER-funded positions and the budget limitations that we're faced with, and all of these questions that we have with regard to the personnel report, I think it's no longer looking like something that is a rubber stamp on a consent agenda. I think it needs to be separately addressed. And I would make that motion if I can sum it up though, Tammy, if I need to make a motion. So I guess I'm just looking for your feedback if I need to make that motion or if that is just a suggestion that can be made and moved off the consent agenda.
May I suggest using the terms for this evening, future?
Foreseeable future.
Yeah, future personnel reports to be added to regular business.
Yes,
And then I will ask for a second. And then once we have that, which we now do, I will ask for discussion. So if Eddie and someone else has.
Just a question, and Tammy, I think, knows the history on like the fact that did we used to read every single name on there when we did it that way?
Yes, we did.
So just know that you have to read them all, and spring sports are coming up soon, which is fine. You gotta read all the names one at a time.
That's fine.
And the two people motioning usually are the volunteers to read that, so that's.
I'll throw myself on that sword.
Any additional questions or discussions on Maria's motion to put future personnel reports in the regular board business on the agenda? Seeing no questions or discussion at this time, I will ask for a vote on that motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries starting next month until advised via motion differently. The human resource or personnel report will be in board business and not have to be pulled separately. And that will then list as stated by, and clarified by Edward, that we will have to read position by position as needed that month. With that being said, we have talked about a specific position. Is there any motions in regards to that activity? Or are we moving forward with me asking for a consent agenda motion? So I will open it up to board members for either the full consent agenda motion, or if anyone has any motion tied specifically to the personnel report. We do not have anything on the associate principal. I will turn it over to ask for the motion for the consent agenda then. We have that motion this evening? Maria? Yes.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through E, which includes the second reading of policy 8510 wellness, minutes of the January 26, 2022 meetings, claims, vouchers, and receipts totaling $3,278,371.24, the personnel report as presented, contingent upon the satisfaction of appropriate liquidated damages for resignations if applicable, and donations totaling $310.
We have a motion by Maria. Do we have a second? We have a second by Chad. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions?
I'll abstain for the January 26th minutes.
Thank you, Nubbs. Motion carries with the noted abstention, Tammy. Next on our agenda is the items for future meetings. As we've discussed in the past, the purpose of this agenda item is to make sure that we are staying on track, and besides encouraging board members to contact the committee chair people, certainly to keep a running tally of items that are unfinished for future meetings, or those that may be in committee but not yet to the full board, as some examples having to do with some safety at the middle school for school crossings, sub-pay rates, a review of 504 combination, different types of IEPs, etc. So at this time I would ask, does anyone have, any board members have any items for future meetings?
I do.
Okay, Linda?
And this is probably going to have to go to the Finance HR Committee. But it's about the ESSER 3. I don't know if we can look into potentially giving teachers, aides, support staff, custodians, secretary, maybe a bonus off of that ESSER 3. It looks like other districts are doing it as well. I think Wausau, Antigo, maybe like a potential of 4.7. I'm sorry, Eddie, I'm having this put to the agenda, so we don't need to discuss it, right?
Yep, we're just
Or
looking for items for
how does that
future
work?
meetings.
right?
We're fine.
Okay. And then I have the next thing that came out of the audit, that maybe we need to look into doing a risk assessment for certain duties that we have is on the audit here. So I don't know how we go about doing that, but probably HR finance as well for that.
Okay. Just a clarifying point, were you aware that we did have a presentation from the auditors at the last?
I was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
And
have
their
specific-
suggestion, their recommendation right here states that the district perform a risk assessment of its operations to identify, implement migrating controls. And they believe that that may be a result of us combining the human resource and finance director's position. But it looks like maybe we potentially need to do it says risk assessment of operations, is what this is saying right here.
So are you only singling out one item in the audit, or should we address all?
There is a couple others too, I believe. So I don't know how we go about, maybe fixing those. I know he said that we would never probably be able to fix one of the items on that audit. But I'm not sure, if there's other ways we can do to correct the things that we maybe need to look into to fix.
We can certainly review those items again at the committee and bring them back to the full board for discussion. As you stated, Linda, there was a couple items based on the size of district and the staffing in central office that most likely would not be remedied without additional staffing or additional controls, but we will go through that and bring that as a topic summary accordingly. Additional items before I call on the next person.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Linda. I've got Maria.
Kendra was next.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would just like, and I don't know what committee level this would be affiliated with, but I've received some inquiries and questions about local private schools, students participating in the MAP sports programs, as well as potential local tax-paying BVA students. I know that we've talked about something in regards to BVA students in the past, but I was wondering if we could maybe revisit that conversation and get some more information surrounding it, of what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Dr. Sample, would you see that as a good fit in which particular committee? Probably CTP?
Yeah.
Why don't we start with CTP? We'll go through what the availability is for additional, shall we say, non-traditional MAPS students to be allowed in the extra or co-curricular activities as provided.
Yes.
All right?
Well worded.
Any additional suggestions, Kendra?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria, do you have some follow-up?
Yeah, I guess it's just an observation and clarification. I know several months ago, if not years ago, we talked about the vetting process for a board member's request to put something on a committee meeting or a board meeting agenda. We seem to, as of late, have a lot of repetitive issues that we've already gone over. Mental health services, we have talked about in several different committees and at a board level. Now, I know that Karen Baker did a whole bunch of work the last time through CTP because there was an additional request on mental health services that had already been presented. Now we're talking again about the audit. We had the audit presentation. We had a chance to ask questions. Why are we wasting more time at the committee level to review it again? I'm frustrated. We all put in a tremendous amount of time. I don't want to duplicate and triplicate presentations and questions. I just want to know how we are going to handle this going forward because we talked about it in the past. We can't just throw out all these suggestions and go over a presentation 2 and 3 times. Frustrated.
I'm not asking for a presentation. I'm asking how we can correct things.
We had the audit presentation.
I've seen it.
Why did you not ask the question then?
because I wasn't on the committee.
It was at a board meeting.
No, it was not. It was at the Finance HR Committee meeting, on
We
February
approved the
2nd,
findings of the
or
audit
1st.
report.
We had the findings.
Yeah, the findings, but we didn't know how to correct, we didn't go over how to correct them.
I guess everybody's time is valuable, and I just don't want to, I see it becoming a pattern of going through the same topic over and over and over again.
Correct.
I'm just wondering if we can get to a point where there is a primary source that says yay or nay on whether or not it goes on a committee agenda or a board agenda again. And to get a process in place so we're not duplicating efforts of the employees of MAPS, of the board members, of administration. It's a lot of time and it's disruptive, in my opinion. So I guess I would just hope we get to a point that we get some sort of process in place where it could be addressed. You know, if we've talked about it in the last 6 months at an agenda on a board level or a committee level, maybe we don't do it again.
I think one of the things that I'd like to clarify, Maria, if I may, is as we go through, 2 points that come to mind at a committee level, any board members or administrators that are there that are not an immediate part of that committee for that evening, if they raise their hand sitting in the back or at the table, are normally allowed to speak and called upon by the chair if requested. Not every night do we think of that question. Sometimes it does take some time to sink in, and we head home and say, I wish I would have asked Glenda this about the school report card, and there was a lengthy presentation last time. So I think there is a time. I do think as a committee, our various committees, we do excellent work, and we do need to consider if there are some report outs that we need to continue to have. To Brett's point, yes, that has been brought up. It was in draft minutes. We could have talked about it there. We could have talked about it as another agenda item. I'm open to putting things on there, so we can certainly go through that. We've talked about different processes as how to do this, and I'm open for options that as the board would like to see. It can be challenging, and I don't want to see, as we sit here wrapping up a meeting about to go through some updates, to then have some kind of a vote, should we put it on there or not. I don't think that's healthy for this time of a meeting or at this point of a meeting. So if everyone would think of that, and if you want to individually send me some thoughts, I will go over that with Dr. Sample so we can take that into consideration. But your point is taken, Maria, of, when is, if you would say enough, and we've covered the topic and checked off by a committee and to the satisfaction of all of the board members. So if there is something more and we need to report back to the full board, absolutely we should and will. But I think we need to clarify that at the committee level also. So let's work hand in hand with that process to say, you know what, are we good with this and we don't need to present anything other than in the draft minutes section? If we need a specific topic, we will. If we do not, then we'll move on. As Chair of Finance HR, Brett, you may have a follow-up quick.
I think it's 3 things. First of all, it's important to note that there is a bolded section under items for future meetings that if we read that and follow that, I think it kind of guides the discussion on this final item here. The point of Finance HR, we wrapped up at, I believe we adjourned at like 6:32 on the last Finance HR meeting, and I think we ended up tabling almost half of the agenda. So there's a lot that we have to cover, and rehashing things is kicking things to another meeting that doesn't necessarily need to be. So the other kind of point to that I would say is if I have questions on something, I have resorted to emailing the chairs directly or emailing a member of that committee to ask for me. I know before I was on CTP that I asked that of Maria a few times, and I have asked that of Kevin for facilities, which I don't sit on. So I think there are means other means that are available, unless it's a necessity.
And certainly if someone feels that it should be on the regular agenda for an update for transparency, that's any board member's right to say, you know what, let's clarify this for the good of the order. Like I said, hopefully we can come to that consensus at a committee level and work from there. I do appreciate the continued when you do have questions either for the chair or for the administrator who is running that particular meeting, starting with Dr. Sample, that when you do send those emails, and everyone has been wonderful about that, to copy Dr. Sample and myself in that so we can keep the running list to make sure. Because if I start to see multiple questions that are on the same topic or very close, that is when it needs to either go back to committee or to come to a topic summary sheet on an open agenda for a regular board meeting. With that said, any additional items for future meetings? Maria, were you done?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm going to turn it to Chad next.
Just for facilities, parking in front of the middle school. I saw an issue. I was struggling through and I saw an issue of bus. For the meeting, I'll have, which I forget what sheet's there.
Okay, so
There's an old field house there, the bus was trying to come out, and they were all parked there, and the bus, I mean, I thought it was gonna hit the car. And I think it's no parking anyways, but I just wanna bring up and review that, and see if something we can fix.
Okay, if you could send that email to myself, Dale, and Dr. Sample, we'll get that reviewed, and maybe we will be able to tie that into the review of the middle school crossings as brought up in a past meeting. I know we have some things there, but if you could clarify that, that would be wonderful, Chad. Thank you. Any other items, Chad, or?
That's all I have.
All right. I will turn it over to the floor. Any other board members have any additional items for future meetings that they would like to see discussed at a committee or a full board level? All right, so we do have some items to go over then. At this point then, I will go down to the radio schedule. Tomorrow morning, Dr. Sample and I, approximately 8:15 a.m., will be on Blue Jay 730 radio, highlighting things in our district and specific to tonight's meeting. Future meetings, we do have a special board meeting Wednesday, February 23rd, 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom. On February 28th at 12:30 in the afternoon, the Safety Committee meeting meets in the boardroom. The Facilities Committee next meets on Wednesday, March 2nd, 3:30 p.m. in the boardroom, followed immediately by Finance Human Resources at 4:30 that Wednesday, March 2nd. Policy Committee meets Thursday, March 3rd at 4:30 p.m. in the boardroom. The Head Start Policy Council meets next Tuesday, March 8th, 5:30 p.m. at the Pine River School for Young Learners. Our CTP, Curriculum Technology Pupil Services Committee, next meets on Wednesday, March 9th, 4:30 p.m. in the boardroom. Bridges Virtual Academy Governance Board next meets Thursday, March 10th at 12:45 p.m. I'd anticipate virtually. Our next regular board meeting is Wednesday, March 16th at 5:30 p.m. Is that in the boardroom or will it be in the auditorium? It will be in the auditorium at this point for the March 16th, so if we can make that correction, please, Tammy. At this time, we have a contemplated motion to adjourn into executive closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes under section 19.85, paren 1, paren C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and paren F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal history or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paren B applies, which, if discussed in public, be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigation. The purpose of the closed session is to consider act upon parental requests for student opt-out of state assessments, including the potential for a closed session to review specific applicable to the affected student or students if the discussion of such an open session would be likely to have an adverse effect upon the reputation of such students pursuant to sections 19.85 paren 1 paren F of the Wisconsin statutes. Any such closed session shall be immediately followed by reconvening into open session for further consideration and ultimately action upon the parental request and to discuss the status of an administrator currently on administrative leave. Do we have a motion this evening?
So moved.
Motion by Linda and a second by Norbert or Nubs. Could I have a roll call on that, please, Tammy?
Russ Ashbeck.
Aye.
Jack Krieger.
Aye.
Ron Liberty.
Aye.
Kendra Osmus.
Aye.
Jacqueline Bremer. Maria Volpe. Brett Waller. Linda Newman. Kevin Blake.
Aye. At this time, we will recess as we go to our area for